Live. No, it's not Clay. We have enough people to run.
Yep.
So Clay had said he would join by Zoom, but he's not here yet, so I'll watch for him.
Should we give him another minute or
He
should we
did
start?
say he had another meeting that was going right up to 5:30, but I think
Okay.
you have quorum if you wanna.
I guess we shall start. Okay, I'll start off with land acknowledgement, then we'll move into the materials review. Since time immemorial, the Kalapuya people have been indigenous stewards to our region, building dynamic communities, maintaining balance with wildlife, and enacting sustainable land practices. Today, this land acknowledgement is a way of resisting the erasure of indigenous histories and to honor Native communities by inviting truth and reconciliation. Following treaties between 1851 and 1855, Kalapuya people were dispossessed of their indigenous homeland by the United States government and forcibly removed to the Coast Reservation in Western Oregon. As we consider the impacts of colonization, we also acknowledge the strength and resiliency of displaced indigenous people. The city of Eugene is built within the traditional homelands known as Kalapuya Ilihi. Kalapuya descendants are citizens of the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde Community of Oregon and the Confederated Tribes of the Siletz Indians of Oregon. They continue to make contributions in our communities here and across the lands. We express our respect for the inherent political sovereignty of all federally recognized tribal nations and indigenous people who live in the state of Oregon and across the nation. Okay, so we have 2 case reviews today and a training from community service offer training. Can I get someone to move to approve the minutes from October?
I move to approve the minutes from October.
Second. Great. At this time, we move to opening comments from board members and commission liaisons. Is Clay our?
He's not, yeah.
Okay. We can come back.
Oh, no, wait,
later.
we just got another one, maybe. No. We'll come back, we'll have to come back to it.
Okay. Let's move to our community service offer training to honor their time. And then we can start with a round of opening comments once we get to our case review. Does that sound okay with everybody? I'd like to invite you to the table and join us.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me first. Sorry I missed October's meeting. I was out with a disabled vehicle and I wasn't able to make it. I'm sorry about that. My name is Paul Bishop. I am currently a community service officer supervisor for the Eugene Police Department. A little bit about my backstory. I've spent my entire 25 and a half years law enforcement with Eugene Police Department. I started in records, moved to a community service officer, went to patrol. Actually, Owen was in my hiring class when we went to patrol. We went to patrol together. Then I went back to a community service officer, and after that, I went to community engagement team, and after that, I was a downtown substation manager for approximately 5 years. And then the last 2 years I've spent as a community service officer supervisor. So, and on a personal note, I'm the father of twin daughters that were 5 months old when I started working here. They'll be turning 26 in March. So they survived, and they're actually both. I have one who is in Washington County Jail. She works for Washington County Jail, and my other one is in the process to be a records person for Eugene Police right now. So our community service officer program, just to give you a little bit of back history, it started in 1970, 1971. We had one community service officer, and I believe their primary function was traffic direction, crashes, hazardous vehicles, stuff like that. Currently, we have 15 FTE spots that we have for them right now. We're going through a hiring process. We have about 10 full staff members right now with 4 supervisors. And some of the duties, so what a community service officer is, we're uniformed civilian employees who are members of the Operation Support Division of the Police Department. We're assigned to provide a wide variety of services to the department, the public. And we manage a online reporting system. And we also respond to active calls that are happening on a day-to-day basis. CSOs are unarmed, non-sworn, uniform, professionally trained officers that respond to non-suspect calls. So a list of some of the, just a short list of some of the things that we handle are traffic crashes, traffic hazards, traffic direction for major incidences, or U of O, football, basketball, sporting events, disabled vehicles, parking violations, safety hazards, fix-it tickets, cold residential burglaries and business burglaries, frauds, scams, SANE kit pickups. Does everybody know what a SANE kit is? Okay. No, it's a sexual assault kit that gets picked up from the hospital, and the chain of custody has to be maintained from the nurse to our evidence, and our CSO is the one who maintains that custody for that. UUVs, recovered vehicles, recovered stolen property, found contraband, criminal mischief, theft from vehicle, theft of services, missing persons, runaways, locations of missing people, follow-up, and our primary function is we're patrol support. So wherever patrol is needed is where we work. So other things that we oversee and manage, we oversee a desk log and the online reporting system. On average, we get between 30 and 50 reports a day online, which equals out to be about 15,000 reports a year that CSOs are handling online. Those online reports don't go through dispatch, they just come straight to us. And patrol doesn't see those, only the CSO, it doesn't hit a call screen for patrol. We oversee and manage the Guardian trailers. Does everybody know what the Guardian trailers are? So the Guardian trailers are Winco, Fred Meyer, 7-Elevens. They have those aren't ours. Those are owned by those companies. We have 5 of those. They're about the size of a small vehicle. They have 3 cameras on them. 2 of them can be moved around, and they're constantly recording, and over once they reach their full capacity, it just overrides the system. So we oversee those and deploy those. We oversee and manage the command bus. Everybody knows what the command bus is, the large RV that we have. We use it for football games. We use it for PR things. We use it for the fair, Shop with a Cop, National Night Out. It is a mobile command unit. So if we have a large event, we will use that as a mobile command center. We also oversee the radar trailer program. Those are the speed monitoring that we deploy in neighborhoods. And then we also just picked up, we are managing meridian barriers. So meridian barriers have been used for years, but we just started using them. It's a mobile apparatus that we can deploy in a street to block off a street. The element's made out of metal and it weighs about 500 pounds. We have one trailer that has 8 of them that we can deploy, and we just received a grant to purchase 2 more, so we'll have a total of 28 Meridian barriers that we can use for marathons, fair, football games, or anything like that, so. What else? CSOs, CSO, when we're on patrol, we wear bullet resistant vests just like police officers. Our uniforms are gray. We have taken a lot of care to make sure that we don't look like police officers because we don't want to be misinterpreted as being police officers. So our colors are different. We don't wear a badge. Our insignia is sewn onto we actually have a badge for ceremonial purposes, but for our day-to-day work, we don't have a star or anything like that on our uniform. CSOs will not be dispatched to or respond to calls that involve disputes, weapons, or any call where a physical dispute is likely to happen. Or a suspect is on scene or may return to a scene. A CSO will not respond to those calls. So, yes.
In those cases, is dispatch responsible for those, or how do you know which ones to go to?
It's a little bit of both. So, dispatch is very well at triaging our calls for us, but prior to CSOs responding to calls, they do a little bit of research before they go. If they're going to a burglary, they're not only reading, a CSO has the time to sit and be able to fully read and absorb all the details of their call. Whereas sometimes where an officer is, their reaction is very immediate and they're absorbing stuff as they're moving towards a target. So for us, we have the ability to research who's my complainant, find out background on the complainant, so they know the environment that they're going into before they get there. Yeah. That's my job or my unit in a nutshell. Does anybody else have any other questions? Yes,
So the community service officer is a sworn officer,
non-sworn.
non-sworn, okay.
So we don't have the ability to detain or,
Freedom away,
yeah, exactly.
in Rob's words.
We are basically, we're trained witnesses is what
I
we
see.
are. We don't pursue people in vehicles or pursue people on foot. And we're not even authorized to respond in a code fashion. We can, so there is an example of where that is a little bit different. If there's a crash on Beltline and we're trying to get to the crash, we can put our lights on to move traffic so we can move through traffic, but we're not in an emergency mode. We're just trying to get to the event so we can start directing traffic. So, yeah. Anybody else? Sure. That was short. Yes.
So you say you don't wear badges, right? And your
Correct.
uniforms are great. Can you explain a little bit more about what your uniforms look like so that the community?
So, yeah, so it's an exterior vest, just like what a police officer wears. They have a lot more implements on their vest. Primarily, we have our insignia is stitched into our vest. It looks more like a, I don't know what the term is for it, what they call it, but it's like a shirt. Because it has buttons in the front, and so it's designed to look like a shirt, but it's obviously a vest, bullet resistant vest. And our belts, we are not required to carry any type of less lethal deterrent. 90% of our CSOs carry pepper spray. And the reason they carry pepper spray is for us, we oversee animal welfare. After 5 o'clock, when all of animal welfare leaves, we're transporting and picking up animals on a regular basis. So primarily pepper spray is used for that. For those types.
You're in the silver the patrol vehicle?
No, silver is still patrol. We actually drive pickup trucks. Our, we have a fleet. What?
With the trees?
Yes, yes, we have, so we have 6, Ford Lightnings. And then we have 2 or 3 regular Ford F-150s, and we have 2, Ford F-250s. And it's a good thing that we have the F-250s because the Meridian barrier trailers are 10,000 pounds apiece.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we needed, yeah, the F-150s aren't, and the Lightnings aren't big enough to pull the trailers.
What, maybe this is just a personal question for you, but what makes somebody opt to be, whatever you are?
Service officer.
But they didn't even talk about the last.
I jokingly tell people, I said, we get to have all the fun of a police officer, but none of the headaches. It's, we have the luxury of being able to spend more time with the public than what a police officer does normally. And I think for me, I got into it just because I wanted to, I know it's kind of cliche and everything, I wanted to make my city better. And what fit for me and what fit my personality was being a community service officer. So, yeah. Yeah.
This may be a stupid question.
No, no.
I'm new here. It's on my second meeting on the board, so forgive me, but I'm gonna go my personal experience,
Yeah.
which is when I first did a ride along, actually the only time so far, about 15 years ago, and that's when I learned what a CSO was. because We were out and then there was a car crash into a light pole or something. And of course, and quickly the CSO came and then the officer I was with was able to move on for more urgent. Was that still the same kind of thing?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So that's what I say is we're patrol support. So you'll see us a lot at traffic crashes and disabled vehicles and stuff like that to free up police officers. Another event that happens is, let's say we have a barricaded subject. We'll have CSOs that will go out and take up perimeter spots. Okay, and relieve those police officers because they can be used for more vital spaces or spots on those calls. The difference is if we have a suspect that's mobile instead of barricaded, we're not responding to those calls because we're put in jeopardy. But once that person's locked down, we have the ability to come in and relieve officers.
Great.
Way back when I first started as a CSO, one of my jobs was when I was helping out SWAT when Lieutenant Jennifer Bills oversaw our SWAT department. I had a stack of her business cards. And when my traffic direction was done, I would go to all the neighbors around and I would hand her business card and say, hey, if you have any questions about what happened tonight, please contact it. And, we're the people who are brought in to be able to explain, hey, this is what was going on. If you have questions and stuff, we're able to spend that time with the community. So, yeah.
So from an organizational standpoint, is the benefit of having community service officers that that they're cheaper or that they don't have to go to the academy? Or, I mean, I can see I appreciate your explanation, helping us see how resource management happens. Why not have them all be sworn officers, I guess is my question.
Honestly, part of it does come down, we are cheaper.
I see, okay.
We are substantially.
Okay.
I think it's.
I don't mean to be vulgar.
No, absolutely. And part of my argument is, and we have started using CSOs on more ad hoc teams, which is like MCI and CMT and drones and thought there was one other one. So it's more beneficial to have a CSO sitting on a traffic direction spot on an MCI call out instead of even on overtime. We're cheaper on overtime than we are than an officer sitting there.
Oh my gosh, okay.
Yes. So it's just utilizing your resources to the best of their ability, and understanding what we're trained for. when it comes down to it, we're handling more crashes than what police officers are.
I see,
Yeah,
yeah,
so it's just our level of experience on handling certain things. The other thing is we receive where, like, a police officer might receive 2 weeks of forensic training. We're receiving a month of forensic training,
oh,
of lifting prints and pulling, I mean, every aspect of forensics training. We get more because we have the time to dedicate to
I
those
see,
calls.
yeah,
So, yeah.
that makes sense, thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions?
If I might, Jose, just for, just from an executive viewpoint, there is another aspect of our CSO program that I think is very valuable for you to hear. And that is in 2020, 2021, in a post George Floyd environment for us, we recognize the importance of sending non-officers to calls that don't require a police officer. Like, that was what the community was asking for. And so we took our CSO program and we went from, I believe, 6 CSOs and punched it all the way to 20.
Wow.
And that the whole concept behind that was not only just the deburdening of our officers and being more effective, but being more calculated and listening to community and saying where and when we don't have to send a police officer, and we can send a soft closed CSO officer, very valuable for us. So there's another aspect of how this program is effective. So just want to bring that out. And because we're recruiting, it's a great job. Come on out and do it. We're hiring.
Thank you.
I guess one more question on that.
Yeah.
You had mentioned that, you started as CSO, went to a cop, now you're back on the other side. That spoke to me. I'm 25. My dad started as a police officer in Oregon 26 years ago, doing law enforcement, but he started as a year as CSO before he went to being a sworn officer. Do you see a development pipeline for folks that are interested in becoming police officers through the CSO side?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. I think it gives you a taste of what to expect. And it's not only have we had police officers that went from being a police officer to a CSO, we've had CSOs that have gone onto patrol. And so and just from my personal experience, going from a CSO to patrol, what was different for me, and a little bit of a struggle for me, is we respond as a single person. So going to a disabled vehicle that might be up on a mountain road or something like that is nothing for me. I would do hundreds of those. Okay, you're not in the same uniform anymore. It's just changing your mindset to, what you're doing. And we've also had several CSOs that started off as police officers that weren't successful in FTEP, became a CSO, and then moved back and were successful the second time that they went through. It's just going through those processes. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. We have a round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Have a great day, guys, and I'll let you guys get to it.
Yep.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Lucy Clay is here if you want to have a report.
Yes, please.
So the timing worked out.
Hi, Clay.
Hi,
Do you have anything to share in your capacity as a liaison?
to the police commission? Sure. I'm just pulling up the agendas. 1 second. I'm sorry I was a little late to the meeting. We've met twice since the last CRB meeting, just because of how the months worked. We have discussed a number of policies. I mean, the main thing to maybe communicate is that there were a lot of conversations about license plate reader technology and the policy related to that. And so Police Commission actually approved a policy related to that prior to city council discussion, further city council discussions about just the overall use of that kind of technology in the police department and the recent update from the police department that they will no longer be contracting with a specific vendor. So it's sort of, it's complex, community engaged topic where there's this tool that the police department has used and has used successfully for, targeting some types of crimes in our community, but also there's concerns about its impact on privacy, particularly with the vendor that was used, I think, from the community standpoint. And just to say that the Police Commission has been engaged in the policy framework around how to manage the use of that tool within the police department and approved a policy recently. So whenever that comes back as a tool that the police department will use, there is a policy in place that has gone through Police Commission debate and overview and is ready to be implemented as needed. I think that's the biggest feedback from those meetings, I would say.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
At this time, can we hand it off to Rob for a case summary?
Does anybody want to make opening comments? We
This-
blew past
this
that,
would-
so I just wanted.
Sure.
If you have a chance.
Do we have a desire for opening comments?
Let's go in.
Okay.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Just make sure. Has anyone had a dying manifesto to read for the opening comment? Okay, go ahead.
Can you see that, Clay?
Got a thumbs up.
So we've got one request to review service level compliance. So in September of 2025, the reporting party, who we'll call the RP, said Eugene Police Department officers told him or her that his or her property would be handled in a certain manner post arrest. The RP complained his or her property was impounded and the retrieval cost was too expensive. Classified as an inquiry, and the RP's complaint was reviewed by members of the Independent Police Auditor's Office. The review of the incident determined no policy violations were made by Eugene PD and the complaint was dismissed. And then those are the materials that we'll give. This is a pretty short one. I'll stop sharing and you guys can take it away.
One thing, sorry, before you move on, just for you to know that the slides didn't advance. This happened like a couple of years ago. Just for anybody who was watching that, I knew the context about for the next one.
Next one, I won't click into I'll keep it in the Microsoft option. Thanks for letting me know that.
All right, I think with a service level complaint, we could probably do with one round of discussion. And we'll do clockwise, starting with Elise tonight.
All right, sounds good. I reviewed everything, reviewed the intake sheet, reviewed the body worn video. I didn't see anything. I think the classification and disposition was appropriate.
Thank you.
I agree. My only comment is that this isn't for the police department or the auditor's office to fix, but this is a problem in our community that our system needs to do better.
Agreed.
Rick, I agree with the outcome of the situation. I'm wondering if the cooperation of the RP in the first place was a problem, and if that was the leading reason for the dismissal.
Can you say more? I'm trying to
Yeah,
understand
in
your
other words,
concern.
apparently he did not cooperate after a period of time, and because of communication issues or something.
Mm.
It seemed like that was maybe one of the reasons that he was dismissed.
From our office, from the complaint system?
Yeah.
Oh, I would say not. I mean, he could choose to be uncooperative. Basically,
Right.
the facts that everything was handled in accordance to policy sort of means that it would be dismissed, because nothing untoward happened.
Is it typical that the amount of money that costs to retrieve items from impound is high?
That's a great question that I don't know anything at all about. I don't know if any of the police experts know about
Defer.
impounds.
Cost to retrieve things from impound.
It costs are incurred through the, whoever it is in impounds, right? So if it's a vehicle, it would be through the tow yard.
I think it was a motorcycle.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does like it. Is it
So it would have been
typically
through-
taken to
A tow yard.
a tow yard, is that what? Typical.
So if it, yep, and then the person would be contacting the tow yard for, the retrieval of that, whatever the fees would be.
Okay, is that a contractual situation with the tow yard? How is that?
There's some state law on it too. There's some state law on it too.
But yeah, we have a contract with, different companies, that we would go through to, assist us in.
Okay, thanks. Thank you very much.
And I could be wrong, but I think there is a distinction if it's towed and it's impounded versus it's just there for a safe keep. And I think there are different sets of fees for those different things, and that I have seen efforts be made for the lesser of the two. I can't remember which is which, the less expensive one to be, but there is still a cost incurred to the tow yard to hold the thing
Right.
and keep it safe.
I just was curious because there was a little confusion to me anyway, whether he was delayed in getting the material because of jail or because of he went to rehab, I think, or something.
Right, it's an interesting question. Yeah, when I looked into it, there is a distinction between the dirt bike, which is a motorized vehicle, and what happens to motorized vehicles versus other types of property like bicycles, his backpack, tents, camping equipment, whatever, that would be handled differently, and that doesn't incur a fee.
Okay, thank you.
Just as a reminder, also for the public record, EPD does not set the fees for this, so just don't want there to be any, public confusion. Josh.
I will punt only because I am still waiting on the background check, so I haven't read this down.
Okay.
I agree with the disposition and classification. It seemed everything was within policy. I guess the only comment would be, from what I recall reading through, he had issues with getting it back, I think due to the registration, like his name wasn't on it. And I think that was an issue. And I suppose one suggestion would be if DPD could commission some type of ticket along with it to be just in case.
Like a tote.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know how registering dirt bikes goes in Oregon. I don't have one. Didn't know that was even needed, so.
Now you know. All right. It's pretty cut and dry within the policy. And since we are making good time, does it seem appropriate?
I think Clay.
I'm sorry, Clay? Clay.
It's okay, I understand. Yeah, sorry, I'm virtual today. I guess the question that I would have is whether, okay, so I agree it's within policy, and I guess the question would be, is there a different policy that the police department should have related to this kind of property? And that's something the police commission could review. We have a potential policy framework under which the police commission could look at that. But I guess to Brittany's point, it may not even be for the police to review this particular thing, right? It's more of a societal question, in broader terms. But that sort of keeps coming up, not this particular issue, but the idea of broader societal issues keeps coming up. And I wonder whether we as a board have if we think that there's a specific tool within the police department that may be slightly nuanced to help with this particular issue, should we recommend pursuit of that by the police commission?
Yeah, Elise?
Yeah, I guess the one thing that I will say that stuck out that I meant to bring up and had forgotten to do so is the reporting party seemed pretty concerned about whether the reporting party was going to be booked and released in such a way that would make the reporting party's property inaccessible for a period of time that was perceived to be unreasonable. And so I guess just to the extent that there's any coordination that can occur between the jail, I also recognize that obviously the jail's county, right? And so there's only so much that we can do besides talking to folks with our partners. But I always wonder if there's just a way that we can make that process less uncomfortable for folks so that they aren't without their property as they come out of jail for an extended period of time. And again, I don't know how much of this was cost, how much of this was getting to property control, and how much of this was just having difficulty navigating the process. So.
All right, is there anybody else on Zoom?
No, that's it.
Right now, okay, great. Excuse me again, go ahead. Okay, my question for y'all is, are you feeling like you're in the pocket right now and you'd like to continue, or are you feeling like you need a body break? No strong feelings either way. I think we should continue. All right.
All right, we good, Clay?
Yes, I mean, maybe you should try advancing and we'll see. Yes, if you do it that way, I see the next slide.
Technology, we can make do. So here's our case review. So we've got allegations regarding use of force, conduct, and body worn video. So here's our summary of facts. In January of 2025, officers were dispatched to an address in Eugene regarding an allegation of criminal activity. Officer A and Officer B arrived on scene and investigated the complaint. Officer B requested the individual, who we're going to call the arrestee, believed to be involved in criminal activity, to speak with him or her. So the arrestee complied with the officer's request and they spoke for several minutes. Officer B maintained contact with the arrestee while Officer A contacted the individuals who reported the criminal activity. When Officer A arrived at Officer B's location, he or she, Officer A, detained the arrestee in handcuffs. So as the officers escorted the arrestee to the front of the patrol vehicle, he or she yelled to his or her spouse and resisted, pulled away from the officers. Officer A then delivered multiple focused blows to the arrestee and followed the strikes with 2 dry stun taser deployments. The arrestee was taken into custody and charged with trespassing and resisted arrest. Supervisor A met with Officer A and discussed the incident. During the conversation, Supervisor A directed both parties mute their active body-worn cameras. In Officer A's internal affairs interview, he or she was questioned about the interactions with the arrestee. Officer A stated that he or she had safety concerns with the arrestee, and Officer A explained justified the use of force because of the arrestee's failure to follow instructions, threatening behavior, and resistance. In Supervisor A's IE interview, he or she stated the body-worn video cameras were muted to discuss investigative strategies. And then this resulted in 4 allegations on Officer A. So use of force, that Officer A used force in excess of that which was reasonably necessary under the circumstances when he or she repeatedly struck the arrestee after he or she was handcuffed during his or her arrest in January 2025. Use of force, that Officer A used force in excess of that which was reasonably necessary under the circumstances when he or she discharged his or her taser multiple times on the arrestee after he or she was handcuffed during his or her arrest in January 2025. And then we have conduct, that Officer A's actions, demeanor, and treatment of the arrestee was unprofessional, unbecoming, and brought him or her and the department into disrepute. And then the 4th and final allegation, Officer A, body-worn camera, that Officer A muted his or her body-worn camera in violation of policy. And then Supervisor A, 1 allegation, body-worn camera, that Supervisor A muted his or her body-worn camera in violation of policy. And now we will slide over to the allegations. So for the auditor recommendation 1 through 3 for Officer A sustained. The chain of command sustained on 1 and 3, and then the lieutenant who wrote the initial memo used something that isn't on the list, but the lieutenant wrote non-sustained, so that's what made it through the chain. And then the chief agreed with the auditor and sustained 1 through 3, and then the body worn video allegation within policy. And so then the adjudication recommendations for the body worn video allegation on Supervisor A was sustained across the board. And then, so this was an external complaint, generated the investigation, and here are the different details that went into the complaint, and then a breakdown of the adjudication recommendations. I won't go over these again unless y'all have additional questions. And then the materials that we provided for you, I won't read it, but it's everything that went into the event and the investigation and the reports. And then, so final one, thank you for this, and I will stop sharing and let y'all take it away. And if anyone has any questions, I can put it back up at any point in time. So back to you, Jose.
Thank you. We'll start our first round of discussion off on the topics of. Oh my gosh, my mind is blanking.
It's okay. Complaint intake, classification, monitoring.
Yes, thank you. Complaint intake, classification, and monitoring. Brittany, will you start us off on this round, please?
I will. Was it the arrestee that was the complaint? That was the source of the complaint?
In this case, everybody was concerned. So
Okay.
our internal review, use of force review, we flagged it. By the time we
Okay.
flagged it, internal affairs had already flagged it. The reporting party called the next day. So everybody,
So there was internal too. That's what I thought I
Yes.
had read. Okay.
yes. So if, yes, you read,
And that makes
you
sense
did
why I
read
was
that.
confused on
Yeah.
like, because there were many sources.
Yeah, it
Okay.
came in, everybody was
All at
concerned.
once. Okay. And then I think this is where I would talk about just clarification with the external investigation. So Salem PD began that, but they didn't complete that because the complainant didn't cooperate. Was that true?
I think, I mean, it is true that the complainant chose not to cooperate with
Yeah,
that
the language I
investigation.
read.
So the first classification was as criminal allegation of misconduct, and when that happens, then it goes to an outside agency. So in this
Mhm.
case, a different police department investigated it. The complainant did not choose to cooperate with that, and then it went to, so that
Then
is,
it went to the DA.
it went to the DA, and the DA chose to not file due to the lack of cooperation from the arrestee. I
Yeah.
think is how we refer to it in the slides. This is a highly unusual, like, set of circumstances. I don't remember any other case that I've seen here that kind of went in this progression. It's very
From like
unusual.
Salem PD to DA, like that, what parts?
No, that part, I mean, that could happen, but it's unusual then for it to get kicked back to administrative in the way that it happened.
After all.
And the
Okay.
statute of limitations has not expired, so there's
Until
still.
2028.
Right.
So the complainant could choose to cooperate between
In
now.
theory.
Yeah. Okay. Mostly I was just confused and wanted to get.
Yeah, no,
so-
it's confusing because it's unusual.
Yeah, okay. I don't know, I guess we missed our general comment tab about, just to add, like, I really, really appreciate, this case being selected and, just with the way of the world currently getting to have an inside perspective of what's happening in some situation like this. And it felt like as a board member, really getting to do my work and why I signed up to serve. So side note, just appreciate that. Well,
Yeah, thanks.
I don't have any, I don't have any quibble with the classification for the intake. Well done.
Thank you, Rick. Okay, Clay. You're.
I'm after Rick and okay, great. Physically in the room. Okay. My only additional question, I had the same line of questioning that Brittany asked, so that's great. We're on the same page. But how does a criminal complaint like, where did that originate? Is that only from the arrestee originally? Did they do both at the same time, or was that generated internally and therefore, passed on?
Auditor gets to classify the complaint and determine whether the auditor thinks it should be treated as a criminal complaint. So that's where that initial classification happens.
Okay, so that happens in the auditor's office, yeah. And what have there, like in the past year, how many criminal complaints have there been generated from the auditors?
Rare. I mean, I think, I couldn't say exactly.
Maybe one a year, less
Yeah.
than one a
I
year.
would say maybe 1 to 3 would be, it's uncommon. Yeah.
Okay, that's helpful. Otherwise, I have no additional comments. Thanks.
Thank you, Clay.
I have no. issues with the intake and monitoring, so. All above board.
Sorry, I do have one additional comment whenever it makes sense. Okay, it's actually a question. So for the classification, I noticed that the classification of use of force was used as opposed to the taser policy. And so I don't know if you want to talk about that decision, because I found that interesting in the adjudication clarifications.
Yeah, absolutely. So, again, that's, at the time I was interim auditor, so I can speak to it because it was my decision. As in many cases, we can choose to write allegations in a number of different ways, and there's, in this case, multiple policies maybe to potentially consider as violations. Overall, I thought the seriousness of the incident warranted looking at it as a use of force. Was the force reasonable versus whether the taser policy was violated, which is why I decided to go with 2 separate allegations against the force policy itself. In fact, it is in theory possible, and you saw this in some of the adjudication recommendations in the chain of command, to argue that potentially the taser policy wasn't violated. There is a carve out in the taser policy for using specifically drive-stun tasers against people who are handcuffed. And so I felt like it was the problem was less the use of the drive-stun and more that the use of the drive-stun against someone who had been rendered safer because of the handcuffs was excessive. So that was my reasoning, looking into why to write it against the use of force rather than the taser policy for that second one.
Thanks, that's helpful.
Could you, I'm sorry, once more, Lindsay, this was also, I think, Brittany, I was also a bit confused on the intake process.
Yeah.
One more time.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you.
So,
I don't think I've ever seen.
no, it's as unusual. So, we do use of force reviews. So our office, when forces, EPD does a great job of collecting information when force is actually shown or used, and in our database, it pops up in our system. We look at it. Each morning we open it up and see what's in there, and we can see when force has been used, and we can open it up. We get police reports. We look at body worn footage. That's just part of like what we do in addition to looking at complaints and stuff. So as part of that review, I looked at it and had concerns, called over to IA, which is like typical, and they had already flagged it for concerns. So they had also, like, this is all happening within like a day or 2 of the incident. So this is happening very quickly. And the reporting party, I believe, called the day after we had both sort of, so we had already kind of started the thing in motion before the reporting party, I think, had even called in. So it all happened quite quickly and very proximate to when the force had been used. It's kind of unusual in that way, but it is part of what we do.
Forms of reporting.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
So, I mean, the system has redundancies that are good.
Yeah, and also shout out to IR. I'm sorry, shout out to EPD for internally reviewing this.
Yep.
I always think that's a good thing for the public to know. I don't have any, there's so much that I almost thought about like breaking the rounds of conversation up per allegation, but that could take us a while. So I just don't, let me stop there and say our next round of discussion is on EPD policies, practices.
Can I
Yes.
Thank you. By and large, I think, good complaint intake classification, et cetera. I appreciated picking up all the different, body cam. There's a lot of different ways, and just to clarify, what we're talking about, Officer A's body camera, we're talking about that it fell onto the ground. Is that what we're talking about?
Mhm.
Not that it was muted during the conversation
Oh,
between
there
Supervisor
was
A?
both.
And- both. Okay.
Yeah, it did fall on the ground. That happens. That's, I mean, if you are tussling around with someone, that happens from time to time. They're pretty secure, but for sure they fall off. In this case, we were really fortunate to have good dash cam
Yeah.
views, which was the most compelling video, I think, from the stack of video. But yes, and also later on, once things were kind of calmed down, there was a muting issue.
And then my other question was around adherence to laws not being included there. Was there a reason that didn't end up generating one?
I think the reason I decided not to write against that was that the criminal investigation was complete. And so it felt like now the administrative investigation against these policies was most appropriate. Yeah.
I guess one other thing I should have said at the beginning is tonight, I'm just, as always, but reiterating it tonight, just speaking for myself personally, not in any professional capacity.
Sure.
So thank you.
Yep.
I did have one more question that's not related to any of the topics. Is this the most like redacted information we've seen in a case file?
Oftentimes and it is because of like discipline that you're not allowed to see
I
and
see.
we're not allowed to comment on. So
Okay.
the only things that are redacted are disciplinary in nature. And it's actually kind of rare for you to see one that has so much
Right,
redacted.
yeah,
So yes.
okay,
And that's what it is.
thank you
So
for
you know.
clarifying.
Yeah.
Excuse me, Elise,
No,
sorry about.
not a problem.
Our second round of conversation is on EPD policies, practices, and procedures. Please take us away, Rick.
Okay. I'm wondering if there's any way that. And this is kind of a backdoor way of talking about it. It strikes me that the officer has to have some ability to control the person who's in handcuffs, but outweighs him by 35, 45, 50 pounds. And who presents him or her with a situation where he or she is in a position where they can't control any further, or makes a judgment about that, they can't control any further. Whether there's a policy, apparently there's a stun taser exception out. What are the circumstances for that? I can't remember.
I cannot remember the policy verbatim, but it does have a carve out to using drive stun. So not the darts that are
Right,
shot
right.
that cause neuromuscular incapacitation, but just the contact, which
Right.
is used as pain compliance. I can't remember the policy verbatim, but there is an exception if there's some kind of danger that can't be overcome.
Yeah, it struck me that if I had been in that position, it would have been difficult for me to deal with that situation because this complainant was extremely large. He wasn't real tall, but stronger than certainly the cop was. And there's a real possibility that after the focus blows didn't work, that he was in trouble. And I have questions about whether focus blows are an appropriate response in any case, but that's something for the police commission to deal with. But I'm wondering if there's some way we can protect the officers in some respect, and whether maybe the deputy chief could handle that, talk about that.
Well, sure, instead of having you turn all the way around, was able to come on up here.
Please join us.
So, Rick, that's a good question. I mean, we teach a lot of open-handed things in defensive tactics. And so we think of things like your come-alongs for people. So how do you utilize a hand-wrist lock? Yeah, you can go over the shoulder as well. That's another good technique. Over the shoulder, pull back the shirt. But if you get into a physical confrontation with somebody that's handcuffed, it's very difficult. But you can think about things like pressure points, and you would use the taser in the same manner. So if you use the taser in like a drive stun mode, if you touch it to somebody, it's pain compliance and they're gonna move away from it. So what we need to be thinking about is if we're gonna use this taser in drive stun mode, what do I want to accomplish here? So coming down into the collarbone area and the shoulder area to get a person to go down, for example, is one of the ways that we would use that. This is to utilize open hand or strikes in this situation. It really is not an appropriate use. And we teach, you know, even things like hair holds. I mean, it's not very often anymore that we utilize a hair hold, certainly not on me. But you know, it's an applicable. You think about coming up,
worried about you if you were handcuffed.
you know, you think about coming up over the shoulder using a hair hold. But the other thing that we have to think about also is we have multiple officers on scene. So, you know, one of the officers can be coming and doing a pain compliance hold on one side while the other officer is doing another. At the end of the day, really, what you can do is do a controlled takedown to the ground and then utilize the ground and using calming techniques when you're on the ground. So there's a lot of things that we teach. I mean, Owen's our lead on defensive tactics. He could probably walk you through every single tactic that we would use in this situation. But again, you think about using an open-handed strike. What are you trying to accomplish really? Because every time you strike, it's kind of like the drive stun of the taser. The person wants to move away from it. So, you know, you see if you have somebody handcuffed and you continue to punch them, it's not doing anything. You would probably think, okay, that's, to begin with, it wasn't the right tool. But even if we're utilizing that, you'd probably go, it's not working. We need to do something else instead of multiple strikes. So completely inappropriate tactic. I think you guys saw from the adjudication, completely inappropriate tactic for the situation. So I'll just hang out up here in case you guys have any more. Owen, do you have anything that?
No, I agree with everything you said. That's good. Follow up, you mentioned the dry stun, like a pressure point location like the neck.
Mhm.
Is there any reason why you would go for the intercostal muscles instead?
Well, we don't, and I'm just, no neck, because neck's not a place we ever want to apply a taser. So you come down in here into the collarbone area, right down and up in here. Intercostal muscles, we could, but there's not a lot of meaty stuff there. And so, and then you also have close proximity to vital organs. So we really want to, even with dry stun, we want to try to get into the meatiest muscle groups, the legs, shoulders, arms. The Happy Meal is a good one if you get a little bit lower, but you know, it's not as effective. So, you know, any areas where, you know, you can anticipate there's going to be a large amount of muscle, for example, and you can get to, so.
That's it. Thank you very much for sharing.
I have a question, even though I'm saying working for a little bit of ignorance because I didn't review it yet, because I'm not official yet. Well, I guess I'm official, but I'm not. Not clear yet, whatever. Anyway, but just one thing, just hearing what I did from what Rob had on before. And this may be a stupid question, forgive me, I'll play the newbie card for a few months probably. But there were two officers there, right? And the supervisor too. At the time that the incident happened, was the second officer around? Like, is there a protocol, maybe is the right word I'm looking for, where if something's getting too difficult, you as an officer will pull back and wait for the other one to show up? Like, I obviously didn't read it, so I don't.
Sure, 100%. You know, we always want to be, you know, if there's one suspect, there want to be two cops, or two suspects, you want at least three cops. Like, that's the way that we do, and we're successful without having to use force, is just strength in numbers. And in this case, and it's been a while since I reviewed the body worn camera, but I think an officer was right there present.
Other side of.
There were
Yeah.
He was
Yeah.
drive stunning towards.
Yeah, you know, and so what we see here, and this is just an assessment, is I don't think there was good communication between the officers, and I think the one officer that was on the one side, a newer officer, was just a little bit behind the curve on what was happening and wasn't quick to react. Once things did engage, if I recall, that officer did get engaged, and ultimately was the one that got compliance from this individual and got him calmed down and did all the things we would want to see. So.
Yeah. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Clay?
Sure. The only question I really have is around body worn video, and that both a supervisor and an officer had allegations about muting. And so I guess the question about training then is that it seems like there's some not 100% clarity on what validates a muting of a body worn video. So I wonder like how this is only two officers or officer and a sergeant within the department, of course, and both have history in other departments, I think, relatively recently. So it could be the policies are a little different. But I guess I wonder if that's something to look at is like reinforcement of the training of when it's valid to mute or turn off body worn video. Because it seemed like the sergeant actually was just not able to communicate why they wanted to mute and whether there was even a reason to mute. It sounds like there wasn't. And that's why the allegation was sustained. So I guess that's maybe a question for the assistant chief, but also you don't have to respond. It's just a question.
Clay, I can answer that one real easy. We're way out of bounds on muting the body cameras. Policy does not allow for you to mute body cameras for investigative purposes. I mean, if it was a personnel discipline matter, yeah, you could. If it was a tactical matter, yeah, you could. If there was something super sensitive, it was operational security, yeah, maybe you could say, as part of this investigation, we would reveal something that would, impinge our operation security. None of that's here. This is just not following our practices and certainly not following our training.
Okay, that's good to hear. Yeah, because it just sort of seemed like neither the sergeant nor the officer could really articulate why that happened. And clearly the officer was sort of, responding to their supervisor. So I think the within policy result of that investigation makes sense. I guess maybe the question is whether the police department should ask supervisors if the training feels like it's in line with the policy, because if that supervisor didn't really know that was way out of bounds, then obviously it's a question for other supervisors too. So.
With the supervisors after this event, at least in patrol command, exactly how and when you can meet your body worn camera, because this is not an isolated incident. We have seen this in other incidents. And so, this is going to be something we're going to have to continually stay in front of. We're going to have to continually train and bring it to forefront because it's an obscure policy. We get a little bit scared about body worn. Am I actually doing coaching and counseling? Am I talking about a disciplinary tract? There are some things there that are valid reasons for muting our body worn cameras. And so there's a little hesitation from our supervisors. And I understand it 100%. But we continue to talk about these things. We continue to bring it up at our patrol command meeting, because our patrol team is the ones that are predominantly wearing our body worn cameras. So,
Rob, do you think the policy will change?
I don't think so. I mean, Clay, that's something certainly Polco could look at, police commission, as to whether we're best practice. I think our policy is best practice. I do. Yeah.
Thanks. That's helpful to know about. We don't get to see sort of like discipline or what the outcomes are from these investigations. So for you to articulate that is really helpful to say that there's been sort of residual training from that. Thanks.
Yeah. Definitively from this case, because after I saw it, I was quite taken back by our muting of the body worn camera on this. And that led to immediate conversations, what led into immediate, we're going back to retool a little bit here and talk about it. So I know that did happen.
Great. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Clay.
That's a quick question, what you just said. Actually, when you say retool, and this may get into discipline or outcomes. So if you can't go there, I understand it. But is retool kind of a individual situation, or is it more as a group? Like, hey, let's make sure everyone is trained again. Is that something is that general enough that you can answer?
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. It's probably a bad use of word on my part with retool, because that would seem like we're going to reinvent everything. Retrain would be a better word. And just bring it up and discuss particularly in our patrol command. And what we do is we'll have these discussions in our patrol command where the leadership is there. And the idea behind that is that our sergeants will take it down to briefing And then we'll brief every officer in those briefings and talk about when and when you cannot view your body worn. It's an expectation that you know our policies. That's an expectation of being a police officer with us. So hopefully our teams are looking at this.
Thank you.
Thank you. No,
I think the big thing that stuck to me, or big question, is going through, I took a note of it, which is not like me. Officer A, in an interview discussed that they never at all communicated a fear of force coming from the arrestee to the other officer B. I guess the procedure for a situation, not necessarily like this, but where it's not immediately going in, there's something crazy going on. Is it standard that you would communicate with your other officer to be like, I believe that there is a reasonable fear of force. What is our plan going forward? Because they said that it wasn't relevant to conducting the investigation, but is that standard police practice that they should have been communicating that fear in advance so that it's at least addressed in the footage and they can come up with a plan and a strategy together?
So make sure that I'm understanding you, and Noah, you're asking me a question about whether or not we would communicate whether we feel a threat of violence or something ahead of time going into a situation. Did I understand that correct?
Essentially, I know Officer A said that they didn't discuss it because it wasn't relevant, but they also never communicated any type of strategy with the other officer. Is there a procedure in place of, if you're on scene with another officer, you need to communicate if you do have a fear with them to confirm with them that you have another person that would agree or disagree?
This is a super nuanced question, so this is something that we could probably take hours to discuss. I'm gonna try to drill it down really concisely. So there's no book, there's nothing out there that says when we're approaching an individual that this is what our dialogue will be. Every once in a while, like you're gonna go into a situation and we know that the individual has a club or a knife or something, and then you have a little bit more of a pre-plan. You know, Owen and I or John and I may go into something, I'm like, okay, I don't carry a taser, you guys are less than lethal, I'm gonna be lethal. We'll talk through what our options are and what we're going to do. The if-then statements on, if this happens, this is what we'll do. Almost all of what we do in law enforcement is just almost intrinsic. So if I go on a call with another officer, I'm watching and listening to what they're doing. I'm trying to assess their level of stress or fear, what's going on with the suspect. There's just so much happening. And you can't really define it right down to exactly this is what we'll do under this situation. That would be really good if we could, but we can't. And what you find is, as officers gain more experience working, and particularly when they gain more experience working with each other, then they get to understand those cues faster. And so if we're going to things and you're with experienced officers, then you know that, hey, when they're heightening up and when things are happening, you probably ought to ramp up your intensity and your thoughts, and you ought to be paying attention. And when they're down, like, hey, we're all good, then things are probably all right. But most everything as it is in any type of defensive tactic world, everything is all about what is the suspect doing. The suspect is going to always dictate what we are doing. So we're going to assess the level of cooperation, we're going to assess the level of threat, and we're going to work off that. I know I didn't specifically answer your question. I apologize for that, but we really just can't get into a defined thought process on it.
Could you say a little bit more about how you are trained to approach in multi-officer teams?
Sure. I mean, there'll be some discussion. I mean, we go into scenario-based training and you go into a room with two officers and, I was watching recruit officers just last week or the week before. We have two officers going in on a shoplifting situation. And as they come in the door, the officers will discuss. I'm going to go talk to complainant. I'll go talk to the suspect and watch them. There's some conversation that's going on in between there. When you're going to make an arrest, there's a lot of things that can happen. You may look at somebody and go, if you don't want the suspect to know you're going to arrest them, or whatever the symbol would be, or we're going to hook them up. Because sometimes if you say, we're gonna arrest this guy, well, then the fight's on, like, cause he knows you're gonna arrest him and you've lost that advantage. So there's a lot of things that'll happen in there, where and when you can have communication. Yeah, that's how we're trained, how we wanna do it. Does it always work? No, because there's just so many nuances to everything we're doing.
That's another follow-up. For multi-officer teams, is there a set standard of? I don't know how to word thought in my head, but a more experienced officer and less experienced officer, like the difference in how many years of experience is allowed before you pair them up. So you could have two officers and they both only have a year of experience.
Yep.
And so the blind leads the blind and they don't know what to do.
Yeah, and unfortunately, and we've talked about this here before, that a good portion of our brand new officers end up working night shift. Because the experienced and tenured officers, when seniority, won't take it. And so it's good and bad in a way. Because, you know, we have these young officers that are out and they're learning from some of the veteran officers that are there and some veteran leadership. And they're getting these repetitions that we talk about, and it's good. The bad part is, you're right. I mean, we could have a 1-year cop with a 1-year cop and neither one of them really has the skill sets to work through some of these problems. And that's a vulnerability. We know it's a vulnerability. But we have collective bargaining agreements. We have, union rules, and seniority means something. And if you have seniority and you want to work day shift, then you can work day shift. And, that is a vulnerability. There's no question about it. And we don't have a solution to that.
Okay. I just wanted to, express some gratitude for your candor around the body worn, video, use and muting in particular. I just want to say that I appreciate that. And I feel like that is a real big step in, showing that this is important to EPD. So thank you for doing that. Thank you for your time and showing up and, answering for the actions of other people. Appreciate it. My only question is, because I've seen this, I'm be my 5th year on the board. I have seen this a few other times and meant to ask this question before, but for my own understanding, in terms of contextualizing this, how long has EPD been using body worn video technology?
2011?
Yeah, somewhere around in the downtown team started using it,
Okay.
11, 12, and then widespread on patrol was 5 or 6 years later.
Okay,
But I was on the manhunting in 2013 and I had
I see.
a body camera then.
We had in-car video and we also had the microphones with us during that time, but then.
Yeah, those have been around for much. When I got hired in 2011, we had the in-car with the microphone packs for the other stations.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that that's more recent than I would have thought, or that I had thought. And, thinking about it in that context, I just wonder, how much of this is, how long cultures of compliance take to set in and really, I don't know, just that this becomes, our police officers kind of second nature or something like that. And, I guess I'm, just thinking and speaking out loud here rather than directing any kind of comment or question. So.
Well, if you don't mind, I'll give you a comment.
Please.
I mean, this number of repetitions that our officers have on a daily basis of body worn camera on, body worn camera off. I mean, even your newest officers in a very short period of time, this is gonna become 100% automatic. It's tap and go as soon as you get out of your car. So it's very quick that becomes, the culture of compliance.
Sure.
And so I don't, in no way, shape or fashion do I think that this factored in at all here.
Right.
Every once in a while we do see it. And our officers are gonna make mistakes, or they're gonna get out of a car and before they can tap and go, something just so quick is developing that they just do not have time back.
Yeah.
So, the redundancy on that is when you throw the lights on in the car, it will also activate body worn
Right.
camera. So you have in-car video and body worn, and presumably you're gonna catch most everything.
Yeah.
And the good part is, and John could talk about this from his years as a detective, almost anything you can find on video, either from a store, from a house ring camera. I mean, if anybody walks around in our environment and thinks you're not being
Yeah.
recorded, I'm sorry, you're being recorded.
Yeah,
So we've made a lot of cases that way, and so, you know, there's usually multiple viewpoints and angles on everything.
yeah, I personally never want to be in a position where I would adjudicate how somebody reacted in a specific moment. That missed me with that, but, I also don't want to be in a position where I am like trying to assess on partial information, whether this is a one-time thing or a cultural thing. I just think that, appreciate your addressing.
Yeah.
Is where that's also, so thank you. Elise?
Yeah, I guess, two quick ones, so, or maybe one quick one and one that's maybe broader. On, talk about body cam policy. Particularly for lateral officers, I mean, Eugene does it differently, I watch a lot of body camera footage, Eugene does it differently than a lot of other agencies. What does that look like for someone that's lateraling in? In terms of explaining that policy, is it literally just like a sheet of paper, it's like, here's body cam policy, or is it a little
Yeah,
more?
it's pretty much, here's a sheet of paper, here's our body worn camera policy. You know, it would be great if we could spend a tremendous amount of time in talking through the nuances of every single one of our policies. But we're gonna go to what we would consider the red line policies, use of force being one of them, and that's one of the most primary ones that jumps out.
Mhm.
So with a limited amount of training time, we will go to those red line. Are our officers expected to know every single policy? Yes, they are, 100%. And, you know, I can't sit here and say that we know every line of every policy. It's just not gonna happen. But we do give a body worn class. They are provided training in the body worn camera, and then when you get in a car with your coach, you're gonna get 14 to 16 weeks, if not more, of practice and reiteration in this. So, yeah.
I guess my other question around the policy being where it is now, as opposed to a all on redact later policy, is that for risk of either to the criminal investigation or a civil liability concern, or is something else driving that?
Yeah, no, great idea, great thoughts, it's perfect. There's competing interests here, so we have the staff time it would take to do all that redacting, which would be huge, and I don't think we could do it. There would be amount of storage space it would take, we're already stretching capacity, so that's a big deal. And then I think, you know, there's some real privacy concerns with trying to maintain all of that. So we've tried to find a balance in our policy where we're open enough, where we can get some information out, but we're restricted enough, it's not killing us, if that makes sense. I mean, in a perfect world, we just download our body camera, it'd be available, you could look at whatever you wanted, and it wouldn't work. You know, you have victims of crimes, you have witnesses of crimes, you even have officers that could get doxxed. There's a whole myriad of things in this, so.
Thank you, that's all I have.
I think I just had more observations that might develop into questions, but one thing that maybe speaks a little bit to what Rick was saying around engaging with an individual who seems to have some physical dominance, and specifically what was catching my attention was the interview with Officer A and their comments around their perception of Officer B. And looking at the footage, like Officer B was definitely of the smallest stature out there. And I guess just what's unsettling for me is that that was noted as part of the dynamic for Officer A that contributed, I think, to their feeling of threat. And it feels unsettling to think of, because of one of the cops that's showing up and their smaller stature contributes to the other officer feeling threatened, that then leads to what I would say like an abuse of power and harming this individual. So again, I don't know that I have a question or that's a policy issue. I feel unsettled about that. And I also, watching it through my own lens, I don't know how gender plays in, and I just have to speak to that too, and kind of what I've observed. Also,
Brittany, you mind if I just take a second on that?
yes,
The comments in any way, shape, form, whatever, that somehow the stature of Officer B or Officer B's response, or in any way, shape, any manner led to any justification for Officer A doing what he did is not supported by any fact at all. And I will tell you, regardless of gender in our organization, everybody goes through the same training and you're held to the same standards. And, you know, I will go a little bit further than you. I am, and I was beyond offended at those comments in the investigative report. So,
Thank you. For
yeah.
saying something. Appreciate that. I guess there is one question. Somewhere in what I read the interviews because my brain does better with that. Something in what I read from Officer A is that they said something about being taught to not do something once. And that was related to the 4 blows. And I was not clear. I see head shaking, so I assume that's not, I just wanted to understand.
Yeah, I'll mention this one to Owen.
Yeah, so how do I answer that? No, we are taught to use force until it stops whatever threat or your perceiving stops. So if that takes one punch in this case, then you stop. Then you have to stop and assess after each one. You have to take that moment and assess. That's what we teach people. Now, there are times when you're dealing with like a deadly force situation. If somebody raises a rifle at you and you fire 4 rounds off because you don't have the time to process it, that's different. You still have to own every round. We still have to own every punch. So the idea that I didn't have time to reprocess and after the first 3 punches go, is this not working? I just plainly disagree with that. And I think as a training team, we disagree with that. We own every punch. We own every use of force. There's a possibility you could punch somebody 15 times. 14 is good. But the 15th one would be out of policy. We would call it out.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And then the last observation was just, it was interesting that there was reference to the Officer A having a previous injury from an incident with their leg breaking, I think. And it's just interesting to me to observe how that played into their interpretation of threat. And again, that had nothing to do with the individual. And then also kind of contributed to ultimately what happened. So just observing, I don't know that there's, again, anything to do about that.
So your prior injuries, your prior experiences, your prior uses of force can weigh into your decision making, but it cannot automatically justify elevating your use of force or using a non-trained method. I've been punched in the face a bunch on patrol. Embarrassing to admit. I can't immediately, somebody approaches me with a balled fist, I can't escalate my force. And go, oh my God, this guy's gonna punch me no matter what. Like you have to evaluate each one on its face.
Yeah.
It's very unfortunate this officer got injured before, but it doesn't mean he can then go, well, I don't want to get hurt, so I'm gonna go to the next one. I mean, I can't do that.
All right, thank you.
And I'm sure that the answer is in there somewhere and I don't remember it. For the muting of the body worn footage, is there any requirement for them to file like a justification for why they did?
Well, actually, yes. When you write your report on the body worn, not even that, it's as you're about to mute your body worn camera, you're to make a statement. I'm muting my body worn for ABC or whatever the reason would be. I believe that's it. I don't think you have to document it in a report. Is that correct? Yeah.
So the most common one in here is mute for tactics.
Yeah, that's the most common one.
If a body worn camera fails, we have asked that they document it in a report. So it does happen that something will happen. The body worn camera gets damaged, falls off, doesn't turn on, the batteries run out. I mean, any number of things can happen in very physical, dynamic job. So we ask that we not incidentally discover that there's no footage, but that it's better to document that it failed and what happened. And I would also just say, I get a very non-random sample of, video. However, we have a very high level of compliance with using body worn cameras correctly. It is the vast majority of circumstances and officers. It is not something that keeps me up at night. I think refining muting has been something that's been a really good thing to do, and I think that's improved over time for sure. And so I don't know if that's helpful at all, but that is something that has come up. There are times when body worn cameras are going to fail for whatever reason, and it's better to just document why. Also, to DC Adams' point, there is a lot of redundancy. It's rare that officers are out there acting alone by themselves. So it's usually not only is that one officer's body worn, you have another officer's body worn, you got car, dash cam. So like it's rare that there's really circumstance where there's nothing recorded in a situation, which is also beneficial to us. The only exception I would say was SWAT. I'll always take every opportunity to complain that SWAT doesn't wear body worn cameras, and I think they should. So DC Adams has heard it from me before. He'll hear it from me again.
Well, I'll tell you, we have the body worn cameras. They're in a bank out at the SWAT armory.
Yep.
And I think the union and I have made, we've come to an agreement on our policy yesterday. So I think that will dissolve the union's complaint, and I think we'll be moving forward.
I love to hear that.
And if I can just address it too, that when Rob, Lindsay, or myself look at a case, we're always looking for the body worn, we're always requesting it, and if there was a situation where it's not there, I can guarantee you we're gonna ask why not. So if it's not in the report, that will definitely be a follow-up question.
So you can ask a question, and it may sound, I don't know if it's for you, Lindsay, or for you, Deputy Chief, right?
Yes, sir.
DC is Deputy Chief.
Got it. Sometimes he's acting capacity chief, sometimes his title changes, it's really not.
Listen, I have all kinds of acronyms. I just go by EIEIO.
I work in HR, so I always try to make sure I get people's titles and positions, names right, all that stuff. You said one of the reasons that would be acceptable, I think you mentioned a couple others, but for turning off body worn is tactics. When do you, maybe you're probably the person to explain that a little more.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking, I know we won't want the public to see how you do these things when they're secret, or, you know, kind of laying the plan out, but in that moment, no one's watching it, right? So like, isn't it something you could, maybe this is what Elise was saying, that you could not mute and then just later on not a public record, or at least one game. Oh,
It would be.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do, 100%. Could we do that? Yes, and then redact. But then we're having to have people come in that are subject matter experts in the tactics to try to guide the redaction. I mean, the staff hours it would take would be huge. That's one of the components of that. And the second piece is, and I'll just tell you why we would, what would be like a justification for this. So we have explosive breachers assigned to our SWAT team, and they have explosives that they carry in their cars in specific places. They have gear that they carry in specific places. If that was to be viewed or put out to the public, then potentially anybody could view it and would know exactly where we're keeping explosives. And so that would be like, that's real low hanging fruit for why we would say tactics. In that case, we probably would deactivate the body worn camera because you would see. But that's just an example of, you know, things that are operational security driven. And really, this is one of the discussions we've also had in that you can go on A&E and name your televised whatever. You can probably even go online and find YouTubes where you can see most every tactic that we're talking about. And so the idea or notion that we would continue to mute our body worn because we're talking about tactics is going to at some day just dissolve and go away. And I think that's more sooner than later. And this is a discussion we're having internally about this because we continue to see it. I'm muting for tactics and I watch it and go, okay. You know, when your deputy chief is looking at it and going, come on, guys, like really? So I think that's something that we have to have discussions about. Now, as I say that, understand that I haven't pushed a black and white car in almost 20 years. So, I mean, you know, the idea that I'm gonna, you know, get down into the weeds and dictate on that one is probably not realistic. But we have to have it from the ground level coming up where they're recognizing and understanding, you know, what do we need to be doing with this? So
thank you.
There are reasons.
Other follow-up questions? Rick, did you begin our last round of discussion? All right, Clay. Will you please, start us off on our final round of discussion, which is on adjudication recommendations?
Sure, yeah, I agree with the chief and auditor's office. And the chain of command, it's interesting, you know, they went through the similar adjudications, but then had a difference of opinion on the second use of force question, which is about taser. And I guess I'm asking for some clarification whether we think in the room that that was mostly because of like the concept of use of taser and its ability to be used in that circumstance. And like if you just looked at the fine tooth comb of that only, that it would have been within policy or not sustained, as they said? Or do you think there's other implications of their analysis of use of force that are worth discussing? And maybe that's a question for Lindsay or someone in the auditor's office.
I mean, it's difficult for me to speak what was in someone else's mind. I think the argumentation they made, I didn't find compelling. And I do think that if it had been written against the taser policy, it may have been closer. I still think it probably would have been outside of policy, but it would have been, it is a different standard that you're looking at, right? Is it reasonable? And I think I appreciated that they looked at it really carefully and that there was, you know, discussion. So you got to see kind of a wide variety of argumentation, particularly about the tasing. But ultimately, yeah, I think it is an interesting question. What would have happened had it been written against the taser policy versus use of force? But it wasn't. So
yeah. So then maybe my question is, if anybody is from the police department is willing to chat about this, my question then becomes, you know, this is another lieutenant, right, that wrote this adjudication, and you know, they're another person who could be in this scenario, and they're writing an opinion about that use of force, and you know, use of force is judged based on like the totality of the circumstances, and someone else who would be in the same circumstance, would they also use the same force? And so, you know, this is just one outcome from that. And obviously the others in chain of command had a different opinion and said that this is the same violation of policy. But I'm just curious how that factors into thinking about sustaining policies, sustaining allegations that are a violation of use of force in that context.
can I say one other thing?
Yeah.
A little bit of general realm, if I'm understanding correctly, is that I relied heavily also on the defensive tactics review, which was clearly argued that the tasing was not appropriate, not trained, and which I thought was helpful. So anyway, because that's more closely linked with how people are going to be trained and what expectations are going to be communicated to the organization more broadly. I thought that was sort of an important detail that brought me a little bit of comfort if there was some disagreement or confusion about what expectations were, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe this is my post-traumatic experience from working in Portland. I guess we always had trouble like trying to get a grasp around how we as a community thought about uses of force, and how, you know, members who are of the police bureau up there, police department here, consider it because of the totality of the circumstances and not wanting to second guess someone's, you know, sense of fear or sense of the actual circumstances on the ground. And so when I see another, you know, member of the police department sort of saying this is probably somewhere within policy, not a sustained allegation, then it makes me question that, like, are we all seeing this with the same level of concern? And so that's why I bring that up, is just, you know, the disagreement is there, and obviously the outcome is what it is, a sustained allegation. But when you're judging a violation based on the idea that someone else in the same circumstance would do the same thing, then if someone else who looked at that, who could be in the same circumstance, said it's possible, then I guess I worry about that. That's all. There doesn't need to be a response, but that's my comment.
Thanks, Clay. Rob, would it be inconvenient to put up your handy matrix?
Oh, with the different,
Education.
I don't have that handy, I don't.
I thought it was in your PowerPoint.
This
Oh,
one.
damn, I thought you meant the definition, sorry.
There it is.
Yeah,
Perfect.
so, and the chain right there where
Yes.
it goes lieutenant, captain, deputy chief.
No?
My recommendation is pretty fairly in line on all for the officer A, sustained on the first three. Within policy, after reading back through the discussion about the lack of knowledge of whatever was going to be discussed,
Yeah.
I think that's within policy. No way knowing, and then
It's reasonable.
for this, yeah, it took me a moment, I was like, do they have an obligation to question? And then
Totally. I mean, and that's where I went to. It's a
Yeah.
really interesting question, especially when you have a higher ranking officer giving an order to a younger rank, or like a lower ranking
Yeah.
officer. Like, yeah, do they have to do? Yeah, but they couldn't know what was gonna be asked.
And we don't know really what was said, so maybe
Right.
it was relevant and they didn't realize that they should have turned it on. And then for supervisor A, agree with the sustain. Well, I guess the taser policy isn't particularly relevant since it's not against it.
I have a tendency of being a squeaky wheel. Some pedantic even, and I agree with the auditor's office on the adjudication recommendations. I just want to say that I'm heartened in the deep, dark hours of December to see some consensus between the chief and the auditor's office regarding body worn video. I'm just really chuffed by it. Yeah, Elise.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, sustained. I do appreciate that there's some agreement. That's one of those where oftentimes I think when we're doing case selection, it's a question of like sometimes the most interesting conversation occurs when there is not agreement.
Mhm.
And this is one of those situations where I appreciated the review because it is both a way to see that, you know, we sometimes the auditor's office and the chief do agree, and then also just this case for me was pretty appalling. You know, it's talk about multi-officer tactics. At the start of the arrest, I think they use them really well. You know, you can see they wait to go arrest the arrestee until both officers are present. They quickly get the arrestee in handcuffs, tactic working. And Officer B, I believe, didn't use force. You know, I think that, to me, that is just one more way that I think this is pretty appalling to have such you know, we talked actually in this about not using the continuum of force these days as much, but you know, to have an officer who didn't use any force and then an officer using the force that Officer A did. You know, that was substantial to me. We talked about the interview, the gender dynamics there that I was sensing also upset me. I mean, if the push-pull machine is the same, a DPSST for everyone, there is no different standard. The standard is the standard is the standard. That officer is trained to do, Officer B is trained to do everything the right way. We're drive stunning the arrestee into Officer A, which is and then just on the, you're talking about owning every punch, you know, I'm all for giving officers latitude, human performance standard, whether or not there's going to be enough time when you're in that loop to assess your next action before you assess the effectiveness of the previous one. What stuck out to me is that there are 7 seconds between the last punch where arrestee seems to go towards the hood, where the officer pivots to the taser and the stun and the drive stun. And I think that was just unacceptable. So I wanted to mention that as well. So there.
Thank you.
I also agree with the auditor and the chief, and a couple of things that convinced me. I had called out some of the same alternatives that weren't used with the 2-officer takedown option and pressure points. So just that those were disregarded. And I actually just appreciate the conversation tonight around conduct, because actually in the interaction, Officer A seems quite composed for most of it and doesn't necessarily like raise their voice or act what might seem disrespectful until the obvious incident. But being able to kind of break down, hearing from you all really many micro behaviors that were quite inappropriate that aren't on the surface level for the average citizen to note. And then having that reiterated in the interview was helpful to confirm that one for me. I wasn't really on the fence, but just further itself. Thank you.
I agree with the chief. I don't find that this conduct was appalling. If I were there, I think I'd be looking for some way to stop this guy from hitting me. That's my judgment.
Thank you, Rick. Do we have members of the public here for public comment?
You, the news person, so you're welcome to make public comment. If you would like, just raise your hand. That's the only one. The other is employee. No to your question.
Okay. Well, this brings us to our round of closing comments.
You have the auditor's report too.
Excuse me, I'm just,
No worries.
excuse me, Auditor Renetsky.
Thank you. First thing I wanted to bring to everybody's attention is the Citizens Police Academy. They're taking applications now. Has anyone here done that? Rob, do you want to say a little bit about your experience with that? Maybe give some.
I mean, it covers the whole spectrum of EPD, not just officers, but like CSO, CET, radio. I mean, it'll give you a little peek behind the curtain on everything that they do and the agency and how it operates. So it's a time commitment, but it's thorough, it's good, and I recommend it.
So time commitment, the academy is scheduled to start March 4th. And it goes through May 6th. It's a 10-week program. Classes go on Wednesdays from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. And there's a few Saturdays. I'm going to be doing it. I've talked to a number of different people, even though I have a lot of experience with it. I'm throwing my hat in the ring, going to do it. Other people have done the same. So I strongly encourage you to do it if you can. I think it will certainly help when a lot of the questions you're asking are these sorts of things that you're going to also encounter there. You'll see the comm center, there'll be some EVOC, which is emergency vehicle training, some use of force stuff. So it's really going to be a great exposure. If you have any difficulty in the application process, let me know. The second thing I wanted to cover is headshots. We're going to try to schedule it during the February meeting. And actually, let me back up. On the agenda, we put down February 10th for the next meeting. There is a January meeting that I will leave it up to the chairs whether they want to actually have a January meeting or not. It's not unusual to skip it because of the holidays in December. You all know the amount of time commitment it takes to review these cases. And select a case, it may interfere with your New Year's plans. So if you do want us to schedule January, just let me know. We'll put that back on. But we would like to get those pictures taken. If you would like an individual appointment in the atrium downtown, that can be arranged. These pictures, by the way, in case you're wondering, are for the website, not for the post office or anything exciting like that. Okay. The next thing I want to talk about briefly is we had an amazing CRB recruitment period. Joshua went through the process. How many did he think? How many applications do we have there again? Do you remember?
18?
18 for Joshua, so, the appointments for our chairs are actually coming up for reappointment, so I want to make sure you want to do it. For everybody else, we want to basically, if you don't want to do it, we would prefer to have everybody go through the recruitment process at the same time. Joshua, we had to schedule a separate one. So we do ask for community input, we do ask for council input, but we'd like to get all those lined up, so if you don't intend to renew or you're all going off to law school, like we lost our last person for, let us know. No, hopefully we'll survive finals and not go, wait a minute, this is a mistake.
Well, I can make through finals. Bar, I don't know.
Bar thing.
Easy peasy.
You're right.
So let us know. We are working on a few big changes for 2026. We're coming up with a big anniversary. So we were going to be looking at maybe some special activities and stuff to recognize the fact that we've been around so long. It's
30 years?
20th year, I think is that? Yeah. So we're going to try to do some stuff with that and recognize the fact that Eugene has been in the forefront of this when most places woke up after George Floyd and go, hey, maybe we should do this. We've been doing it. So we're going to try to get some recognition out there for that as well. We're also going to modify our feedback survey. So if any of the members want to suggest questions or stuff that you would be helpful, that we will ask. So you have an insight every time we close out a case, we send out a survey. Sometimes you get responses, sometimes we don't. But that sort of information can be helpful. Let's see what else I had. Training recommendations. So we are still working with EVOC training. That would be done during the spring and summer. That's in particular, that topic came up because we do review pursuits. And it's a little bit helpful to understand what the officers are going through behind the wheel. So we're going to try to get that one scheduled. If there's any other topic that interests you, let me know. Obviously, as you review cases and you see things, you may go, oh, I'd really like to learn more about that. So for example, if you said, I want taser training and you want to get tased, let us know. Okay, these are the sorts of things that no one's going, no, thank you. But yeah, no, you know, if you want to learn more about the policy.
Can we get pepper spray too?
You know, while you're at it.
No, I mean.
38.
Think a lot. It's not fun. From screens.
So, but yeah, this is the point of the training, is to help you understand the cases. So just let us know if there's any topics that you would like us to include. And the last thing is any open and closed sorts of cases you'd like to see. Typically, so everybody understands, the way I've been doing is I'll go to Lindsay and Rob and myself and go, all right, what looks good? You're welcome to give us some feedback. I really would love to see, you know, a pepper spray case. Okay, and we'll try to identify it. So whatever you have interest in that area, you should let us know. And even Clay can let us know, even though he's over there on video. And that's pretty much it for my report. We're continuing to go through cases. Lindsay did mention that we review the use of forces. We also do review pursuits on a regular basis that come through. So there's a lot of reviewing that takes place regardless. So questions?
Betty's had her hand up.
Can I just circle back? Can I gauge how many people might be available for the February, before the February meeting to take headshots, like 5 to 5:30? I know sometimes it's hard to make it by the 5:30 time.
In February?
Yes.
I can be here.
So should have some people. Okay. So I will schedule that and I will send more information when I confirm that they're available, but right now that's what it's looking like, 5 to 5:30. That way we don't have to keep you later. And then if people can't make it to that, well, we can do individual appointments with the person that takes pictures.
And the person
Thank
that
you.
takes pictures, this is outside their normal hours, and we said, can you just come because we're gonna try to make it work, so.
I may be at trial prep, but I'm usually pretty flexible in the day too.
Oh, great.
And we can always have EPD take the pictures over at the
It's true,
booking.
yeah,
page if you really want. Anything else from anybody?
Can I make one really person that could be a point of order? You have a first and a second about approving the minutes. Can you just take
Oh,
real
yeah.
quick, throw
Yeah.
your hands up if everybody would like to agree, or if anybody has any
All in favor?
objections?
My name was misspelled
Okay.
in the minutes, so just.
Okay.
That's fine.
We can fix that.
Before we wind down, there's one thing I'd like to say. So this is Deputy Chief Adams's final meeting. We would like to thank you for coming. You provided a lot of valuable information. And the meetings have been better because you've been here. So thank you for, thank you for your insights and your frankness, and we really appreciate your time.
Hope your retirement goes well.
Oh, it'll go great.
It'll be awesome.
Yep.
At this point, it's time for closing comments. We are ahead of schedule, y'all. Great.
Good job.
Yeah, thank you. It was all me. Will you please start us out? Josh?
Yeah, I will. Well, like I said, this is my second meeting as a member of the board, but my first in person. As you all probably know, I was a member of the public for a while. Learning and listening and thinking, is this something I wanted to look into? And then I was very fortunate at least 18. So I just want to say, I've learned so much already. I'm going to ask stupid questions. I'll keep playing that newbie card as long as I'm allowed to. I don't know, is there a timeline on that, Lindsay?
No clock.
Okay. But I've learned not only from EPD people here, but also from all of you, just the questions you ask and the concerns you bring up. And I think that can only help me do better in this role. So thank you for that.
No comment?
No comment?
Thank you, everyone.
Approved. I didn't also know, but a public thank you for your service to the people of Eugene. Officer Adams, I agree with Rob that the quality of our work is made better with you here, so thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. You make me cry.
Trying.
In my retirement ceremony, I'd be a wreck.
Yeah, echoing, always happy to have assistance and insight. It's one thing that, we can take a look at all of this and give our piece, but it's always helpful to have another perspective and, probe what we think upon those initial ones. This one was I appreciated this whole meeting. It went really well. I appreciated the starting with the CSO program. There's a great copy up with Chief Skinner and one of the CSOs a year and a half ago. So if you're interested in more, it was great insight into how Eugene is using that CSO program. So I recommend that one. And yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to do a quick appreciation. I don't know if it was Amanda or Beatrice or somebody else who said this case is going to take a really long time and it's really, there's a lot to it. Thank you for that, because I scheduled extra time. So quick little note, that's appreciated. Yeah, thank you for this space. Welcome, Josh. Congratulations on getting selected out of 18. And thank you so much for your time, Deputy Chief. I think I've shared this with you before, and just for the broader room, I think there's specific officers I've interacted with that fully confirm and restore my faith in the work and the reason why you all do it. And just the humanity that you carry is really evident and makes me feel proud to live in Eugene. I'm really grateful for all the work that you all do. But I've especially really felt that. So thank you.
Thank you.
I have no comments.
Approved. Clay.
Yeah, I'll just echo the comments for DC Adams. It has been really useful and valuable for you to attend these meetings, and the voice that you bring to the conversation has been insightful, but also shows the level of leadership that we have at the police department, which is really valuable to our community to see. So thank you for all your service, and congratulations too.
Welcome back anytime.
February, okay. I'm getting on the calendar.
Need a headshot of it.
Yeah. We'll adjourn at 7:26. Thank you all.
Thank you, Clay.
Congratulations. Thank you so much.